Okay, everybody, it is 1 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and get started here. To start our afternoon, we're going to start off, we're going to introduce Scott Maitland from DLGF. He's going to be here to talk about the public side of Gateway. Scott, you there?
I am.
Well, it's all you.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. My name is Scott Maitland. I am the Director of Information Systems for the Department of Local Government Finance. For those of you who haven't met me, here's my lovely headshot that they made me take my first day here at the LGF. This is my second go around with the department. I was a programmer with the department before, and my team now is responsible for the development and maintenance of Gateway, which includes the public site and budget notices.in.gov. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about the public site. It's something that we don't talk about enough as we focus on our responsibilities and our roles of submitting data or analyzing data. I think it's easy to forget that the next step in the process is that we make this data public to taxpayers and other people who are in the state that care about it. Before we get started deep into the topic, I do want to share these two links right here. The first is a link that goes to a glossary of terms. I give this presentation sometimes, and people have told me that there's a lot of terminology they may or may not understand, a lot of acronyms they may or may not understand. And so there's this glossary on Gateway that has a lot of great information on it as far as terms that you might not hear every day and what they mean. If there are any terms I use today and you don't understand what they are, please feel free to ask, as well as if they're not in the glossary, more than happy to add those to the glossary as well. The next link on the page is a help text page. And this help page has a lot of great information about what each of the applications on Gateway are, what they're looking for, has links to their user guides, has links to various documentation pieces for each of those applications, as well as a calendar that we'll talk about later. It's a really great page that's easily accessible from the public site that has a lot of great information that if you're ever confused about anything on Gateway, recommend starting there, and it is likely a good source of information for you. So next, let's talk about what we're going to talk about today, which is the public site. And I want to be able to answer all of these questions before the end of the day. Our standard what, when, where, why questions. Who do I contact with more information? Which agencies are on Gateway? Where is this public site that you talk of? And what is it? What I don't have listed here is why, and I hope that that's obvious. Public transparency, I hope, is important to all of us. It's important that we understand that this data that we have is not your county's data, is not somebody else's county's data. It's not DLGF or SBOA's data. It's the state and it's the public's data. And it's important that we recognize that that's why it's out there. It's important that while there is private information submitted to Gateway that's not shared, a lot of this data should be accessible to the public, and that's why we have the public side of Gateway. So what is the public side of Gateway? Well, public side of Gateway is quite simply the part of Gateway that you need no login to access. There are no credentials required. Everybody from the public is able to access it. It's what you see when you go to the Gateway homepage. That is the public side of Gateway. Nothing special. A lot of special things on it, but nothing special in order to access it. There's four main things associated with the public side of Gateway: pre-configured reports, complete data sets, a set of estimators and calculators, and then some other tools that are available for data visualization or looking at data in various different ways. We'll go through each of these, where you can find each of these, and try to give an example of all of them as well when we get into the demo portion of this presentation. The Gateway public site is not the Indiana Transparency Portal. It's often confused two different things. The Transparency Portal is a great tool run by the Auditor of State with the Management Performance Hub and the Indiana Office of Technology. I highly recommend that you look at it. It's got more than just the state employee salary search function, but that's where you'll find that. Our most common question, and when we built this presentation the first time, was during the transition period between Tom Crean and Archie Miller, is what's the IU basketball coach's salary? And you can find that on the Indiana Transparency Portal, but I'll save you a few clicks and I've listed them there on the slide for you. More than mine is the answer to that question. So again, the Indiana Transparency Portal is a great tool, but it is not the Gateway public site. And so without further ado, here's the first page of the Gateway public site. If you go to gateway.ifionline.org, this is the screen that you'll see, without the red boxes, of course, and this is what the public site is. Now, I'm sure most of you have seen this as you go to click that link in the top right corner, local official login here, but this is the front page of the public site. And if we look at the red box at the top, I've highlighted 3 links. The first one is report search. And that report search is where we'll find, well, what I mentioned earlier as the pre-configured reports. These are reports that various agencies have put together that we think are helpful for whatever reason, and that it's data that's already been cut and pasted and massaged into a specific format that we think is helpful. The next link is the download section, and this is a section for raw data. It's simply complete data sets. There's not as much data available in the download section as there is in the report search section, but there are, I think, over 20 different data sets that are able to be downloaded in their entirety from that link. We find that counties, for instance, are a big consumer of this because they don't want to have to go to each of their units to get the data. FAs are a big consumer of this because they don't want to have to go to each county to get the data. Researchers, businesses that use this data, they like this page a lot. The next link across the top there is the tools section. And that's where you'll find, obviously, the tools and some of the other links that are helpful. Some of the estimators and calculators that we've built that have been compiled over the years. And then hidden throughout the rest of the page, I won't say hidden, but dispersed throughout the rest of the pages are those other things that we've talked about, those other visualizations, those other comparison tools that are helpful that have been built throughout the years. The large box at the bottom that has 6 different pictures inside of it is sort of our featured content section. It doesn't change very often because what we collect doesn't change very often. But these are 6 different either direct links to reports or in the case of, for instance, the taxpayer portal, a set of links that have been compiled and curated that are particularly helpful. And this is not just from DLGF, but also you can see State Board of Accounts, I believe, is in the bottom left-hand link there is linked to the 100R. If we move into clicking that report search link in the top blue section, the top blue toolbar, we'll get into the report search or the pre-configured reports section of Gateway. Again, I've got 2 red boxes highlighting 2 different areas. The top area is what we'll call our organizational options, and then the bottom area, we'll call that our content area. As you cycle through the different tabs in the organization section, you see that it's organized in 3 different ways. If you want a very specific report, you know the report that you are interested in, then the browse report section is a great spot for you because regardless of which unit you're looking for, the reports are all available. There's over 100 reports on this page. These are just the categories of the reports. If you click the next link, the search by unit section, if you know the specific unit that you care about, say you care about your particular county unit, or you care about a city or town or a school district, you can start typing the name of that city or town or school district or unit into the search bar. It'll help you out a little bit with an autocomplete. And then you can find the specific unit that you care about, and it will attempt to drill down into each of these reports to that specific unit. If you don't know what unit, you don't know what report, you just want to know, hey, this is the address I care about. This is my address, or this is the address of that business, or whatever it is. That third tab is your best friend. If you search by address, it should give you a listing of all of the units that have jurisdiction over a particular address. It's not perfect, but it's a very good place to start. If you ever find errors with it, please let us know. We're always trying to improve its accuracy. But it's those second two links are just a great way to sort of slice and dice this first browse report section, which is everything that we have, every pre-configured report that we have. If you notice the links on this page, there's three or four different colors in the icons there. And it maybe is well known, maybe it's not well known, but I try and point it out every time. Each of those colors represents a different agency that is represented on Gateway. So for instance, SBOA is represented by that darker red color that we see in the top two links. The DLGF is represented by the green color that you see scattered throughout. The light blue is ERB, or the Indiana Education Employee Relations Board. The dark blue is the Auditor of State's office for their county abstract data. And then the black that you see over on the right-hand column is the Gaming Commission. So if you're ever unsure what report you want, but you know that it's, for instance, data that you would submit to SBOA, well, then you should look in the red links, or the links with the red icons, because those are the links for public reports from the State Board of Accounts. If we look at the download section, which is the second link that we pointed out in the blue navigation bar at the top of the page, you'll see that there's two main sections to this. The first section is our finance and budget files. There are four categories to the finance and budget files, or four data sets as it's listed: annual financial report, budget data, entity annual reports, and school extracurricular accounts. From there, you can drill down deeper into a specific file that is within that topic, and then you can restrict it even more for unit types and the year that is listed there as well. If you look down below, what is in between the two red boxes right now, there is a section, there's a heading that says documentation, and there's two links there. And those links will take you to sort of help text or user guides that will explain to you what the format of the downloads that you just downloaded are, and are super helpful in explaining what all of the columns mean. The next red box there is the property files, and these are data files sent to the DLGF. It's a very specific file type that I'm sure our counties are familiar with. And again, you can select the specific data set that you're interested in, the year, and the county, and click download. As well as there's another, again, a documentation area listed below as well. So the Gateway public site contains data from 4 different state agencies. And obviously, as a member of the DLGF, I'm an expert, or as close to an expert as there can be, on the DLGF data. I'm not an expert in any sense on the SBOA data, or ERB, or Gaming Commission. And so really our presentation today is sort of focused on DLGF data. I try and make it as generic as possible so that it is so that the concepts transition to the other agencies as well. But I'm not going to be going into any detail about their data, as I'm not educated to speak on that. I don't want to speak out of turn. In addition to these 4 agencies, the Department of Workforce Development, the Indiana Gaming Commission, the Bureau of Motor Vehicles, all also have applications on Gateway. However, there are no public reports published on the public site right now. And I realize now that I just said gaming as having public reports, and not. They do. They have 1 public report out there, I believe. So that is the type of data available is any data, maybe not any data, but a lot of the data submitted to these agencies is available on the Gateway public site. The question of when data is sent to the public site is a question we get a lot. And there's really 3 main sort of strategies that we take whenever we're looking at when to put data on the public site. And the first is as information becomes available. A great example of this is our debt management data. This is an ongoing reporting requirement. There is a yearly affirmation. However, the actual upload of debt information is an ongoing requirement. And as soon as we get that data, we go ahead and we put that out onto the public site. The next would be after a reporting deadline passes, and our TIF management data is a great example of that. Once we get after the deadline has passed and we have a reasonable amount of submissions, we will go ahead and submit that data or publish that data on the public site. And then the final strategy that we employ is after a compliance review has been done by the department. And I think that counties are pretty familiar with this one, which is the gateway abstract data. After that has been reviewed and given the okay, in this case by the auditor state's office, the department will go ahead and publish that data out into the public site. I mentioned earlier that there's a calendar on this help page, the link that I have listed again here on this slide. That there's a calendar on that page, and I'll make sure to point out where it is when we do our live demo. But there's a calendar on that page that describes when data for a particular application is collected, and then when we try to publish it onto the public site as well. We're not perfect, and if you ever go to that page and you say, hey, you said that you would have data published by September and it's October, just shoot me an email and I'll either explain what the delay is, or I'll say, oh, sorry, I forgot, and I'll go ahead and publish it. Finally, and I think most of our counties know this, if you ever have custom data requests that you need to have fulfilled, those can definitely be sent to the department. If you send it to me or you send it to our Deputy General Counsel, Emily Chrysler, our 2 email addresses are listed there. Then we can talk about how best to fulfill that data request for you. Sometimes we're not able to fulfill data requests, but we really do try our best to fulfill those when possible and as quickly as possible. So before we go to the demo, I have one more thing I want to cover, but I also want to take a quick break here to get any questions that are maybe out there so far and answer those now before we move on.
We don't have anything as of now.
All righty. Yeah, I was afraid of that. After lunch crew, I'm sure, is sitting back and relaxing. So, all right, no worries. So before we get into the demo, as the information systems director for the department, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month throughout the world, and it's really important that I think that that as elected officials that we are taking ownership of the cybersecurity for our jurisdictions. You don't have to be a cybersecurity expert. You don't have to be a computer person to make sure that your area is up to snuff. Make sure that you understand what your policies and your procedures are. If you don't understand, ask. And if you don't get the questions answered the way that you want, ask again. It's important that you understand it. It's important that you have policies and procedures in place. We saw just yesterday, the FBI announced that people are trying to take advantage of hospitals in the middle of a pandemic. People are not sitting back and giving us a pass while we're distracted and while we are working on this problem globally. They are taking advantage of our distraction. They are taking advantage of the fact that we are at our wits' end and we're all working at home and whatnot. So please be very vigilant, and please share that with your staff as well. It's really important. We've had examples of counties that have had issues in the past, and it's not a fun process to go through. It's not an enjoyable process to go through. Please take ownership of that and recognize that. So now what I would like to do is I'm going to go ahead and bring up the public side of Gateway. Can you guys see my internet browser now? Okay, great. So again, this is the public side of Gateway right here. Just going to gateway.ifionline.org gets you right there. We're going to go through a lot of these things. I'm not going to go do an exhaustive a run through of all of these links or every report that's available, but I do want to point out some important ones, as well as give you guys some tips and tricks as to how some of this is best used. So I'm going to start by going to this report search section. And there's something wrong with my browser here. It's looking kind of funky. Hold on. Pardon me. Well, I don't know why I have this white bar at the bottom, but I do. So for instance, if we go into the assessed value section, so this is our browse report section. Let me start back here, and you can see we've got all of these links available to us, which categorize some of the reports. And if you click in here, you'll see that we have links again, and these are to individual reports. As counties, I'm sure you guys are very familiar with this link, which is the certified net assessed value by district. And I'm not here to talk to you about this because you guys are the experts on this and not me. But what I want to show you is how to interact with our reports. And what you'll see oftentimes is that you get this tan section right here that has navigation information, and then you have this content section down below. And what we have here oftentimes is a couple of drop downs and then a button over here called View Report. And so if we go to, let's go to a larger county. So let's just take Allen County, for example. What I want to show here is that if there's more than one page, you'll see this right here happen, which is it tells you that you're on page 1 out of, it thinks there's 2, but it's not quite sure just yet. So if we go to 2, it says, oh, yep, that's the end of the data. So these are our navigation buttons. And when we can't go any further through the document, they'll gray them out. And if we can't go any further forward in the document, it'll gray those out as well. This right here is a text area. So if this is 100 pages long and you know you want to be on page 37, you can highlight that and just type in 37. Now, if I do that, it's going to say, yeah, that doesn't make sense. There's only 2 pages. But just so you know, you can type in the exact page number right there if you know what that is, what you want it to be. The next section of this that I want to point out is this section right here. Again, another text box. I'm going to get rid of this so it doesn't give me an error message. This is a pretty rudimentary search function right here that allows you to search. And so, for instance, if I know that I want to look at Jefferson Township, I can type Jefferson in, click Find, and it will highlight Jefferson taxing district for me right there, and then I know right away. Now, if this was on page 80, for instance, it would jump me to page 80, which would be really helpful. Now, what you might also notice is if I click Next, it's going to find the next instance. And this is just like, any Control F that you have ever used in Excel or Word. It's very rudimentary and very, very straightforward. The next thing I want to point out is this icon right here. And if you haven't hovered over it, you might not recognize what that icon is supposed to be telling you, but it's trying to tell you that this is an export functionality. Now, if I want this data to be saved to my computer, then I can click this link and it gives me all kinds of file formats that I can download it into, including Excel, which is super helpful if you're somebody like me who likes to get their hands on the data and really do my own thing as far as analysis is concerned. You can also do CSV if you're trying to import it into something, or if you're just trying to print it out, PDF is a great way. If for some reason you think there's something wrong with the data in here, you can always go out and come back in. But this right here will refresh the data without refreshing this upper section. So I won't lose my county selection. It'll just refresh Allen County data. Whereas if I refresh up here, it's going to take me back to Adams County. So for some reason, if you think you're in Hancock County and you think, look, this can't be right. They should have submitted their CNAVs by now. We refresh that and it's like, oh, I guess maybe that is correct, right? So just a quick breakdown of all of the different options available to you. Like I said, this format of a tan box like this with the content area below is very common that you'll see throughout our reports. And so I wanted to make note of that. Again, search by unit is available. So if we look for, let's see, I like looking for myself. So let's do Scott. And I can find all of the places that are named after me. And you can see that there's a Scott Township in Kosciuszko County. Unfortunately, there's not a Scott Township in Scott County, which would be just, perfect. But you can see all of the different Scotts throughout the state. Now, if you find yourself searching for something like Adams Township, you'll see that there is likely more Adams Townships or Adams somethings than what we see here. Or, for instance, Washington is another common unit name. We restrict this to, I think, 25 options here, and you'll have to keep going further. So, for instance, if I put township, you see that Adams County goes away. And now I just have those with Adams Township listed. And again, search by address is the same way. I can search, whatever I want, and it'll try and find it. It doesn't have 123 Easy Street, unfortunately. So, if we move on to the download section, this is the section we talked about before. You can see. I just want to sort of point out some of the information. A lot of the download section here is actually SBOA data, which I think is fantastic. But this section, this budget data, is DLGF data. And you can see that we've got budget data in the form of different forms that are submitted, as well as sort of on the other side of the coin, the Form 22 data and the CNAV data. And here are those links again for information regarding the file layouts. On the tools section, you can see we've got about a dozen links here that various different things. We have things like a county government debt visualization. So it starts on Marion County, for instance, and it shows the current debt obligations. And it's very interactive and allows you to sort of click around and, okay, now I'm going to pick St. Joseph County. Now it's up there. I'm going to pick Vigo County and it's over there. So on and so forth. It is a different way to interact with the data. In this section, we also have submission tracking. We also have a tax bill estimator, which I think is really helpful for our taxpayers. They can come in here and look at their particular situation as best they can and estimate their tax bill. I always caution people that with any of the estimators at DLGF, we're always going to do a worst case scenario estimation so as to not surprise the taxpayer. If you have been involved in any of the referenda, for instance, we've got, where is it? It's not on here, but if I come back out here and look at our taxpayer portal, we have a referendum impact calculator. And some of our schools don't like our worst case scenario estimates on the referendum impact calculator, but that's just sort of DLGF policy, is to provide the best as we can, and we try and provide information about that down here to talk about why it might be higher than the school's estimate. I quickly blew through this section right here, but these are our, as I said earlier, some of our featured reports or featured links. So this taxpayer portal is a great place to send a taxpayer who's just looking for more information about things that impact them. Tax bill estimator, tax bill lookup, assessed value lookup, sales disclosure search, there's a public part of the sales disclosure application that we're not even going to get into today, but it's there available for them as well as budget notices. I promised that I would point out the help page that I've referenced multiple times, and it's right here under Learn More. You can see that's the same link right up here. A lot of great information about a lot of the applications on Gateway. A lot of the different terminology and things can be explained here, as well as that data calendar that I mentioned. When something is collected, when it will be made public, all right here, and a great tool if you're ever wondering why something is not out there. Additionally, I told you I would point out the glossary. The link for the glossary is right here at the top of the help page. And this is the glossary right here. If you ever want another term to be added to the glossary, there's a link right here for feedback. You can't see it, but I brought up an email on my screen for you to send in a request for additional terms to be added. it's not exhaustive by any stretch of the imagination, but we think it's a great start. Before I move on to budget notices, I want to point out that the Indiana Gateway for Local Governments is a collaboration not just with state agencies, but also with Indiana University, specifically the Indiana Business Research Center. And I want to call out one individual at the IBRC that has been particularly influential in the life of Gateway, which is Carol Rogers, the co-director of IBRC. Carol's done a great job of championing the Gateway ever since its inception and was critical in its creation. We get ongoing support from the state of Indiana. I also want to point out the initial support from the Lilly Endowment. Without these partners, we would not be able to do Gateway, and it's really important, I think, that we point that out and give some credit where credit is due. They have a great team at the Indiana Business Research Center who deserves a lot of the credit for especially for the public site, So with that said, I'll take another quick break or a quick stop for questions. I'm not seeing anything in the chat, but I don't know if I'm super user enough to see the chat, so.
You can see the chat. I don't see anything there, okay. And we don't have anything in our inbox.
Okay, alrighty. So if that's the case, then wow, we are way ahead of schedule. That's all right. The next thing is budget notices. Budget notices is a great application that I was involved in my first go around in the department, and I'm really proud of. Budget notices is at budgetnotices.in.gov. And it's a great tool for public transparency. It's where the department publishes all of the Form 3s and the notices to taxpayers so that taxpayers can be notified of public and adoption hearings for budgets. There's a lot to go over on this page, and so we'll just go ahead and start at the top. You can see that there's 6 links across the top: search by address, unit lookup, budget corrections, fiscal schools, about, and what are alerts. The first search by address is just this main page. That is where we are right now. The unit lookup is well. Let's dive deeper into the search by address first. Apologize. This is from earlier today, but if I zoom out, let's say that I live in Noblesville and I'm really interested in getting information about Noblesville. So if I click on the map, it's going to search where I clicked, and it's going to turn that into an address, and then it's going to look in our address. And it says, okay, you live in Noblesville City. That's your taxing district. And here are all of the taxing units that are part of that taxing district. And here's what their certified levy was last year. Here's what their budget is for the next year, their proposed levy for next year. And if you'd like to go talk to your elected officials about it, here's when the public hearing is, and here's when the adoption meeting is. The Form 3 is actually listed right here. If I click on it, you can see it pops right up. It has all that information. And if there are special units, they are going to be listed here, which there are not for any in this one. In this case, Westfield, what I would imagine is going through an annexation here. And so they're telling you that, hey, Westfield is changing territories. You either weren't included in Westfield before, or you're no longer included in Westfield. Whatever that situation is, find more information by talking to your elected officials, but their boundaries are changing this year. As well as if there are new units, they'll be listed here as well. If we continue to go across the top here, we can do the unit lookup. I'll say you can click this link to get to the unit lookup, or you can go through this drop down here. If you know what county you're interested in, let's go to Blackford County and search that. We're going to go to the unit lookup page. You can see it right there. And it's going to show me, in this case, all units within all taxing districts. And this shows me every unit in Blackford County and the information they've submitted on their Form 3s. Or for, in this case, Washington Township, still outstanding, they have not yet submitted their Form 3, you can see. If you're interested in a particular taxing district, you can again just drill down into it. For let's go to Hartford City, for instance. These are just the units that are part of the Hartford City taxing district. And if I'm only interested in a particular type, we're talking to counties today, so let's talk about just counties. There's Blackford County only. This is the same table as what was listed on the previous page, and so there's nothing new here, for instance. This is just, it's the same information, just presented in a different search format. If your unit or a unit that you care about has undergone a budget correction or a 16L correction, it'll be listed under this section here. Those are listed, and we keep all of them from the previous years as well. So you can see we've gotten better over time. We've had less and less every year, it seems like. And those are all listed here, as well as some understanding about what the 16L is and why it might be there. There are 2 fiscal schools throughout the state still, and their budget notices will be listed here. Indianapolis Public Schools is one of them, for instance. And when their budget notice gets published, which is a different cycle, for instance, than everybody else who's on a calendar year, that is listed here. If you care more about, if you want to know more about budget notices, this link here is available to you. Talks more about what it is, why it is, some frequently asked questions, and then some policies about our information policies. Finally, what are alerts? This is a great question. The budget notices is set up as intended to be sort of a persistent set of information. So as opposed to before, when these were published in newspapers, if you forgot to get the newspaper that day, or if you got it the day early, let's say, you might not see the alert. But with budget notices, we have set up an alert system so that you can receive an email when a budget notice has been published. So let's go back out, and we're here in Lebanon. Here's a great one. We're in Lebanon, and I care about Lebanon Community School Corporation. So I've clicked Alert Me, so that anytime Lebanon Community School Corporation submits or resubmits their Form 3, I'm going to get an email, and it's right up here in my email that I've got here. If I want to edit that, I can. This is what it'll look like if you've never put something in before, just like this. But if I want to update, let's say that I actually also care about the Boone County Solid Waste Management District. I'll click this, and I'll say also Boone County, save my subscriptions, and then now either later this year when those units resubmit, or if they resubmit, I should say, or next year when they submit again, I'll receive a notification so that I will receive that information in a timely manner, which allows me to maybe go to the public hearing. Maybe this is my first day ever hearing about budget notices. I'm like, darn, I missed it. It was on the 8th of September, and they've already adopted even, so I'm going to have to catch them next year. And this allows me to do that, to make sure, because we know that these have to be published 10 days in advance. So this gives the person a 10-day notice if they've signed up for the notices. With that said, I was expecting a few questions, but I also apparently am talking faster than I have in the past. We're about 20 minutes ahead of schedule. So I did want to point out, it's a good point that I just remembered. We talked earlier about cybersecurity. I want to bring something up that's a little bit closer to home than some of the examples I brought up earlier. Later today or early tomorrow, the department is going to release an email warning units about a phishing attempt that's been going around impersonating DLGF employees, specifically our field reps. So please be really careful on emails that come in that look like they're from the department. It's really important that you make sure that the email address matches to the person's name. And so if it says Scott Maitland sent you an email, but then it says Todd Johnson from Russia.com is the actual email address associated with it, don't open that email, and don't click on any links. Only open emails from Scott Maitland if it comes from smaitland@dlgf.in.gov. That's really important, and that email will be coming out later. Just be on the lookout for those emails. We don't know why they chose to pick on DLGF field reps, but they have. So with that, maybe I can stick around for a minute or two for any questions, but I don't know, Ricky and Lori, if you guys have anything that you think you'd like for me to talk about, or?
I don't have any questions. Can you think of anything? In all fairness, Scott has given this presentation twice today.
That's correct. That's correct.
So I get it. Can't think of anything.
I have one. So if and I don't know that the counties do. I know we get it sometimes. So if you have someone just calling randomly asking about the site or information on the site, what's the best place to send them so you're not giving them a tutorial on the site? Is there
that's a great question. So there's a few answers to that. And the first one I would say is, let's say they're asking you about something you don't know about, or they're asking you to explain a report that was not submitted by the county, was instead submitted by a local unit that you don't know about. Within the Learn More section, I lied. Not the Learn More section. Within the inside the logged in part of Gateway, under the user guide section, first of all, the user guide section is a great spot to answer your question to begin with, Lori, but we'll get back to that. At the very bottom of the user guide section is this contacts by agency section, and it shows the email address of the person who monitors the help desk for each agency. And that's a great spot to send somebody if they have questions about the site in general. Those types of questions are things that we can answer for sure. So for instance, DLGF's contact person can be found at gateway@dlgf.in.gov. If you have questions about DLGF things, or if you don't know if it's a DLGF thing, feel free to reach out to us there. Additionally, there is a user guide for almost every application on Gateway. And so if it's about an application specific question, the user guide is a great spot to go. Hopefully between those two things, the user guides and the contact section, you can find an answer. I would say if neither of those two options pan out for you, reach out to I guess me specifically, and I can try and get you yeah, I can. That's a dangerous statement to make, but I'll do my best to get you the answer that you need. So, does that answer your question, Lori?
Yeah.
Great.
All right. Do one more check. Anybody have any questions? Now is the time. Not seeing anything. Well.
All right.
You got another one, Lori, or you?
No.
That was all you had in you.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
All right.
Well, Scott,
Thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. I think the Gateway public site is a great tool, not just for taxpayers, but also for local governments to learn about other governments in their area, other governments that are like theirs, to learn about their own government and things that have been submitted in the past if you're a newly elected official. It's all really important information. And I really recommend that you check it out.
Absolutely. Well, we really appreciate it, Scott. Thank you. I hope you don't have to do it a third time today.
Not a third time today. I do have one next week.
Well, you should be able to do it blindfolded and asleep, right?
Yes, I can. All right. Thank you all very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Have a wonderful afternoon.